Welcome to The Explainer. Listen, we're going to completely skip the usual agenda today because we need to jump straight into dismantling a massive cultural myth. You know the exact stereotype I'm talking about, right? The idea that millennials are lazy, they blow all their cash on avocado toast, and they just flat out refuse to grow up and buy houses. But here is the fascinating reality. That exact same generation has quietly pulled off the largest wealth transfer in history. They've essentially built entirely new economies and developed these financial habits that make older generations deeply, deeply uncomfortable. So why the disconnect? Well, as we dive into the data today, it turns out the old rules just didn't work for them anymore.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at two specific people. Meet Jordan and Alex. Now, they're both 32 years old. They went to the same college, started with the exact same $55,000 salary, and they live in the exact same city. They are facing identical economic conditions. Wildly inflated housing costs and completely stagnant wages. Jordan is our traditionalist. He's doing literally everything the previous generation said to do. Alex, on the other hand, is our pragmatist, and he is playing by a totally new set of rules. As you'll see, mapping out their financial psychology reveals some incredible surprises about how we view our own money.
Let's start with Section 1, Income, Hustles, and Time.
Comparing their career strategies side by side reveals a seriously stark difference. Jordan is playing that classic corporate ladder game. We're talking 50 hours a week, steady 3% annual raises, fiercely loyal to one single employer. And 5 years in, Jordan is making $62,000. Now look at Alex. Alex changed jobs 3 times in those same 5 years. He works strictly 45 hours a week to protect his personal time, and he aggressively negotiated for the market rate at every single jump. Because of that, Alex is now at $92,000. See, Jordan's loyalty is traditional, but Alex watched loyal employees get laid off by the thousands. Alex realized that institutional stability is basically a ghost nowadays, so he simply optimizes for his income trajectory instead.
And, that strategy isn't just some wild anecdote, it's backed by hard math. Data from the Harvard Business Review actually shows that job hoppers in their 20s and 30s earn approximately 50% more over a 10-year period than folks who stay with a single employer. The old loyalty premium that existed for our parents, that has been completely erased. Which brings us to this really fascinating concept called defensive architecture. Older generations often assume that having a side hustle is born out of this burning, relentless entrepreneurial passion, right? Like everyone wants to be the next tech billionaire. But for Alex, his $400 a month freelance design gig isn't for fun. It's a highly calculated response to witnessing sudden corporate layoffs. It's all about eliminating a single point of financial failure. If his main job disappears tomorrow, poof, gone. His income doesn't immediately drop to absolute zero. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. A massive 63% of millennials with side hustles are doing it specifically because they're worried their primary income just isn't stable enough. Only 17% are doing it for fun money. So it's not some startup mentality. It is literally economic anxiety translated into survival arithmetic. And the data shows it significantly lowers their daily financial stress. Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology of spending.
Let's look at how they actually allocate their cash day to day. Jordan spends $1,800 on a really nice apartment, cooks at home, and saves heavily. So naturally, Jordan looks at Alex dropping $800 on concert tickets and thinks he is financially doomed. But Alex sees a totally different kind of value here. He deliberately spends $1,200 on a much smaller, less glamorous apartment, but drops $600 to $800 every few months on concerts or weekend trips. And research from Cornell University actually backs him up. It shows that experiential purchases generate much longer-lasting happiness than just buying material goods. But honestly, it goes way deeper than just chasing a good time. Economists call this loss aversion amplification. Think about it for a second. Alex grew up watching the 2008 crash wipe out home equity and literally have people's 401ks. So physical assets feel incredibly fragile to him. A car can be repossessed, a house can be foreclosed on, but that unbelievable trip you took with your best friends back in 2015, no economic crash can ever repossess that memory. Alex uses experiences as a psychological hedge against a really unstable world. Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds into their relationship with debt. This is where the traditional mindset gets completely flipped upside down. Jordan is super proud to have zero credit card debt, yet he gladly took out a 6% interest loan for a car, which is an asset that literally loses value every single month. Alex, remarkably, is carrying $8,000 in credit card debt at a painful 22% interest rate, but he paid cold hard cash for his phone. Why on earth would he do that? Because Alex's debt is for a high-end laptop and software for his freelance business. It generates income. He views Jordan's quote-unquote responsible car loan as pure consumption waste, while his own debt is a calculated, positive expected value investment. And their view on risk extends right into their savings. Jordan religiously parks 15% of his income in a traditional savings account. He feels incredibly safe doing that, but mathematically speaking, savings accounts historically pay out around 0.5%, while inflation hums along at 3 to 4% annually. So Jordan's safe strategy is essentially a guarantee of slow wealth erosion. Alex understands this slow bleed perfectly, which forces him to accept higher volatility and push his money into higher risk asset classes just to maintain his purchasing power.
So, the crucial point is, when it comes to massive debts like student loans, neither approach is inherently wrong. They're just optimizing for entirely different realities. Jordan sacrificed, lived ultra-frugally, and crushed his $45,000 debt in 6 years. Alex has the exact same amount of debt, but he opted for an income-driven repayment plan, paying just 10% of his discretionary income. Jordan clearly values immediate psychological safety. But Alex is making a highly complex mathematical bet on his future income trajectory, the fact that inflation will reduce the real cost of the debt, and the distinct possibility of eventual loan forgiveness.
Which brings us to the ultimate American dream. Section 4, the home ownership question.
Jordan has done exactly what we are all told to do. He saved up $30,000 to put 20% down on a $400,000 house to start building equity. He thinks Alex is quite literally throwing money in the trash by continuing to rent for $1,200 a month. But Alex isn't just blowing that extra cash, right? He is relentlessly investing the difference. Alex views a house as a massive illiquid anchor, tying him down in a modern economy that absolutely demands job mobility if you want wage growth.
Just let this staggering number sit for a second. $16,000 to $24,000, that is the estimated 4 to 6% in annual hidden costs. We're talking property taxes, maintenance, insurance, transaction fees, on a $400,000 home. And that doesn't even touch the mortgage principal. When Alex ran the math for his specific market, factoring in all these unrecoverable costs, he realized that renting his smaller place and investing the difference into the market would actually yield him roughly $250,000 to $300,000 more in additional wealth over 10 years compared to buying.
Let's transition to the end game in Section 5, the new financial independence. When it comes to actually managing their accumulated wealth, Jordan happily pays a financial advisor $1,500 a year for comprehensive planning. He trusts the institution. Alex, however, relies on books, apps, and low-cost index funds. And this isn't just millennial stubbornness at play here. It's earned skepticism. Alex grew up seeing advisors push high-commission, really expensive products that benefited the institution way more than the client. Plus, Vanguard's own data often shows that a simple, cheap index fund frequently beats actively managed portfolios anyway. So what is Alex actually aiming for with all those index funds? Well, it's not a golf course retirement at 65. He is aiming for something called employment independence. He wants to hit a specific baseline, say $800,000. At a safe withdrawal rate, that generates about $32,000 a year. Now, it's not enough to live lavishly by any means, but combined with his freelance work, it creates an unbreakable structural floor. It is literally a few money. It ensures he never, ever has to accept a toxic job or stay in a bad situation just out of sheer desperation. It's a total shift from seeking traditional retirement to gaining complete power over his time. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the climax of these two different philosophies. After 7 years of identical starting salaries, the difference is striking. Jordan, doing absolutely everything right by the traditional rule book, sets at about $40,000 to $45,000 in net worth. Alex, leveraging his pragmatic adaptability, which includes side business assets of around $12,000, and his market investing, sits at $85,000 to $90,000. He has essentially doubled Jordan's wealth. And when you project that forward to age 65 using historical averages, the gap becomes genuinely breathtaking. Jordan is on track for roughly $300,000. Alex is projecting out to $1.5 million. By optimizing for income growth over blind loyalty, taking calculated risks with his debt and his investments, and fiercely projecting the value of his time, Alex built dramatically more wealth, and he did it despite starting with much less structural stability than previous generations enjoyed. So to summarize all of this into a new adaptation playbook, millennial money psychology is absolutely not about being lazy or entitled or confused. Not at all. It is a highly calculated, deeply rational adaptation to an economy that broke the rules. They are choosing multiple income streams over a single loyal employer. diversified market assets over tying everything up in one house, the value of their living time over endless career climbing, debt based on mathematical returns rather than what looks responsible to the neighbors, and finally, employment independence over the fragile promise of a traditional retirement.
Which leaves us with one incredibly provocative thought to close out today's explainer. Ask yourself neutrally, without any judgment, are your own financial habits matched to the actual economic environment you live in right now? Or are you still playing by the rules of an environment that simply no longer exists? Take some time to really think that through, because honestly, the answer might change everything for you. Thanks for joining me, and keep learning.